Evening, everyone, and welcome to the British Institute for the Study of Iraq's Zoom. Gives me great pleasure this evening. Sorry, and I should actually introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. I'm Dr. Rosalind Wade Haddon, Chair of the Trustees of BC. Anyway, enough of that. What we've come here this evening is to learn about the Eden in Iraq Wastewater Garden Project, which is a collaboration between project director and artist Meridel Rubenstein, environmental engineers Dr. Mark Nelson and Dr. Davide Tocchetto, and Jassim Al-Asadi, managing director of Nature Iraq, which is an NGO. Each speaker will present different aspects of this innovative project and will highlight the interdisciplinary approach that is key to the project's success in promoting both environmental restoration and cultural preservation. Each will explore the project from its inception in 2011 to the present. It's a humanitarian water remediation initiative aimed at restoring the fragile ecosystems of the Mesopotamian Marshes of southern Iraq. Now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, these marshes and the whole Marsh Arab culture they sustain are under threat. Through innovative wastewater garden design and environmental art, this project not only addresses critical water management issues, but also fosters cultural regeneration, highlighting the interplay between ecological preservation and cultural heritage. But anyway, you haven't come here this evening to hear me, so let's proceed. Without further ado, each speaker will introduce the following one to ensure a smooth transition, and at the end we will have a Q&A period. So if you have any questions, please write in the Q&A. And just check the chat box won't be active, but we will put information into it, such as the websites of each individual's part of the project as well. So anyway, so please put your questions and comments as we go along, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. Anyway, let me pass you on to Meridel Rubenstein. Thank you very much for all your participation.
Thank you, Rosalind. I'm going to take my face off. But Rosalind and Ali and BC, we're thrilled to be here. Our whole team is very thrilled to be here to speak to you. And so to set the stage with this image, here we all are in 2013, the four of us on your left, with two Marsh acquaintances. They are caretakers of the Muhammad Shrine, a small shrine run by one of the tribes, and we're there to see if that might be a place in their backyard that we want to, build our garden. We're looking for sites, but just to show you who we all are, there's Mark on your left, Dr. Nelson, Jassim Al-Asadi, me, and Davide. And so this is at the beginning of our work. Oop, hold on. I'm going to get this to go. I'm going to play you a few seconds of a video that's going to just give you in real time the feel of the marshes that we all love, are captivated by. Jassim was born in the marshes and can't get it out of his soul. And then the rest of us just yearn to be there all the time. In the bottom, it shows you how it's presented. It's 4 tracks that actually surround you. So in 2010, how this all happened. In 2010, I was told to turn on the television to watch on the 60-minute news program, a program called Eden Again. And this was about how Nature Iraq it heralded Nature Iraq NGO. Jassim is the managing director of Nature Iraq. And Nature Iraq is our in-country partner. And Nature Iraq at that point had been formed to regreen, to revive the marshes that Saddam Hussein had drained in the 1990s. He slowly drained them and so that to flush out Shia rebels that were hiding there. And once the water got down low enough, he went in and bombed and burned and drove out tens of thousands of Marsh Arabs into the diaspora. When he was, with his demise in 2003, the Marsh Arabs started to return to regreen their land with the crucial and critical help of Nature Iraq. The marshes are flanked by the Tigris and Euphrates, which cross on the eastern edge of the marshes at El Qurna, which El Qurna claims to have Adam's tree. And here you can see the two rivers meeting. But one of the 60-minute program, what was really important for me was that it mentioned the subsequent sewage problems that had ensued upon the return of the Marsh Arabs. They were coming back into a desert, into dry land where there was no continuous water flow. So I had some understanding of wetlands and wastewater gardens, and I knew about losing one's Eden. The precious wetlands on my family farm in Vermont had been maliciously drained by a neighbor just at that same time. So after seeing 60 Minutes, I ran over to my next New Mexico neighbor, Mark Nelson, across the road. He made wastewater gardens. He was a renowned environmental engineer, founder, CEO, and chairman of the Institute of Ecotechnics, which is it's an NGO in the UK and the US, and they're our fiscal sponsors, but I didn't know that yet. I just ran over to see if he would help me make a wastewater garden in Iraq. And then I came home and contacted Nature Iraq and Suleimania. So for tonight, what we're going to do is first Jassim, Managing Director, Nature Iraq, NGO, our in-country partner, will give an overview of the past and current state of the marshes where we're building our garden. And then next, Mark Nelson, environmental engineer, will explain the phytoremediation technology we use and the benefits of the simple nature-based process to clean waste. Then I will talk about our collaborative process of creating the garden and activities that ensued to make this happen. And then lastly, Davide will bring us, now Davide from Tocchetto, our Italian partner, who is a devoted educator, but also has led large-scale water projects, and we really needed him to come on board. So anyway, Davide will bring you up to date on the state of the garden right now and our future plans. So Jassim, if you would like to share screen, this is a good time to do it.
Yeah.
Yay.
I will start now.
Yeah, right now. It's great.
Okay.
Perfect.
Wait me. Good day for all. Yes. I will be speak about the Mesopotamian marshes and the journey between the life and the death. The Iraqi southern marshes is contained from three main marshes. Weza marshes, central marshes, and also Al-Hammar marshes. And these three marshes, it is very important, not for Iraq, but for the world. Area of it around 9,650 kilometers square, and it reached in a flooded area here until 20,000 kilometers square. It is very big, and the key biodiversity area of these marshes, it is very wide and deep. And the person who live in these marshes, their roots from Sumerian and Akkadian. They uses the economy of the water. Buffalo breeders, fishers, also reed harvester, and their houses from the reeds also. As you see, this is the marshes in 1617 of last century. And as you see, this is the houses of their marshes in that time. There is no bricks, there is no concrete, there is no steel structure, or the structure is depend on the marshes. It is from the reed. And also, as you see, the village is the floating village in where you can go to the marshes. And in 19th of last century, the Saddam Hussein regime decided to drain the marshes, beginning to make a soil embankment to cut the flow of the Tigris and Euphrates and another waterway to the marshes. And during 1 year, the central marshes, the Hamar marshes is drained completely, but the Haweza marshes, it remain of 10% because the water in that time is come from Al-Karkha River inside Iran. And as you see in this drawing, what's the situation of the marshes in 1973? And then in 2000 is completely, it is dried. In 2003, after Saddam Hussein regime, this picture in July of 2003, before we reflooded the Center Marsh again. And the person in this picture is I. And as you see, the green picture before you see, it became like this. And in the end of the 2003 and in beginning of 2004, the locals begin to cut the soil embankment that prevent the water to flow from the Tigris and Euphrates to the marshes, as you see, and the marshes is returning back again. There is no plan for the governorate, to the central governorate of the local governorate in the provinces of the Qar or Basra or Amara to restoration the marshes again. But in the end of December of 2003, the Ministry of Water Resources is make CRIM W. It means the Center for Restoration the Iraqi Marshland and Wetland. And in 2003, this center is make a goal for restoration the marsh. Its goal to reflooded 5,600 kilometers square only from the marshes. Why the goal is go down from the rate of the marsh in historical like 9,650? Because we need much water, and the situation of the water in that time in 2005 is not very good. When we calculate the water that we need to the marshes in 2005, that we find we need around 11 billion cubic meter to restorations, 506 kilometers square of the marshes, and we haven't this water. And then we decided to reflood the marshes with half of this quantity of water from the pure water from Tigris and Euphrates, and then there is another water is come from sewage water after make treatment for it, and then there is a drain water in the main outflow drain that flow the drain water from north of the Baghdad to the Gulf. As you see in this picture, how the local cut the soil embankment that prevent the water is go from the Tigris and Euphrates to the marshes. And when reflooded the marshes again in 2004, as you see, the marshes is returned again, and the women is go to collect the grasses for their buffaloes and the reeds for the houses. As you see, this is the marshes after this time. It returned back again. But after that, there is a short water. It come to the Tigris and Euphrates to the southern of Iraq, because there is three reasons. The first reason, there is a short water is come through the border of Iraq from Turkey and Iran. And the second, the effect of the climate change of the quantity of the water of the Mesopotamia. And the third, the problem for distribution the water in the south of Iraq, because the land of the culture of Iraq need around 75 until 85 of the quantity of the water of Iraq. As you see, this is the drought which happened in 2009. And then, as you see here the quantity of water that come from Turkey to the Euphrates and to the Tigris. In that time, there is 28 billion cubic meter it come from to Euphrates in yearly, and there is 48 billion cubic meter it come to the Tigris. But now the quantity of water is go down, and this is from 1930 until now. You see how the water in the Euphrates is go down, and how the water of the Tigris is go down also. This is the dam that prefers the water is go as a natural flow to the Iraq. This is the dam in Turkey, the dam also in Syria, and also the dam inside in Iraq, in Euphrates, and the dam in Tigris in Turkey and Iran also. And then in 2015, there is another drought is come, but after each drought in 2009 and in 2015, there is a good water, it come again. But the hard drought is beginning from 2020 until now. And this is effect on the locals, is effect on the environmental, and effect for the fish, for the buffaloes, and for the grasses, and for reeds. And as you see, we loses much of the buffaloes, loses much of the key biodiversity area in the southern of Iraq. This is some picture about the situation of the marshes in different years. As you see in the left, the marshes in 2019, there is a healthy marshes, there is a good water that come through Tigris and Euphrates, and the Iraq is reach around the 65 billion cubic meter in main dam and Athertar Lake. In 2020, as you see, there is a drought and a big drought also in 2021, 2020, 2022. And until now, there is not enough water that come to the marshes, and the area that flooded with the marshes is go down from 97 at 2019 until around 35% now. As you see, this is the surface of the water that reached the marshes in different area from 2014, 2015 to until this time. As you see, the water is go up sometime, is go down sometime, and this is effect on the environmental of the marshes and of the economic of the locals in the marshes also. This is the situation of the flow to the marshes and situation of the activities of the locals, environmental in the marshes. As you see, sometimes the marshes is very healthy, the economy of the locals is very good, and sometimes there is very bad in every action in the marshes. And as you see, there is a burn in the marshes occur in the summer of 15, summer of 18, when the marshes is drained completely. And as you see, the children, how they suffered from the climate change, from the also the drought of the marshes. As I think in the next year, will be a problem for the marshes, because there is not enough water that come from Turkey and come from Iran. There is much dam, there is much a huge soil embankment. It's constructed in the Hawza Marsh by Iranian side. And we hope we can make a good distribution for the marshes to the southern Iraq. And we hope the marshes is still in life, not in a large area like in the 16th of last century, not like 2019 or 2014. And we hope the flooded area of the marshes is still above 2,000 kilometers square in the future. Thank you much.
So next we'll hear from Mark.
Hello, everybody. Really wonderful to join you virtually. Let me get my presentation up. So I want to go over the core of the environmental technology that we're going to be using in this wonderful project in southern Iraq, wastewater gardens. And just a little bit of background. I'm the head of the Institute of Ecotechnics. We formed about 50 years ago with the intention of demonstrating and working in challenging environments and bringing the human economy, how we do everything, in better harmony with local ecosystems, local biomes, and of course, our planetary biosphere. So over these 50 years, we have started projects in a number of countries. I do want to highlight, because we have one that's in the backyard of everyone in the Institute who's in England. We have the October Gallery in London, which is not just an art gallery, it's a stone's throw from the British Museum, but it's been showcasing avant-garde artists from around the world, what we call the trans vanguard. And our most visible project was Biosphere 2, a closed system in Arizona that I was a member of a 2-year crew. And during that time, we had to do everything in a recycling, sustainable way. That's how I got introduced to this newish technology called constructed wetlands. So just a little insight into the old thinking and the new thinking, which is part of a very hopeful trend, because the old thinking has led to the destruction of so many natural ecosystems, in fact, endangering, the health and vitality of the biosphere. So the old thinking was the solution to pollution is dilution, higher smokestacks, longer pipes into the ocean. Now the thinking is there's no way, we have to choose non-polluting processes. Old thinking, linear solution to discrete problems. Now we're thinking more holistic systems approach. And we've even gone from sustainable to regenerative. We don't want to just sustain all of the problems that we have in the world. We want to regenerate. And what I love about this culture is we are adding energy to the regeneration of the really ancient and awesome Marsh Arab culture. And the old thinking is technology is more reliable than living natural systems. No, the trust nature and natural processes and incorporate waste as resources is the new thinking. And as you'll see, the new thinking and the circular economy, as some people call it, is very germane and central to the project that we're discussing in Iraq. So let's go back to the origins of sewage and the problems. This photograph from a wonderful book called Farmers of 40 Centuries, to me, this is the gold standard of not treating sewage as a toxic waste, but as a valuable resource. Here, these boatmen are paying for the night soil of Shanghai, already a huge city. This is the turn of the 20th century. So they're bringing the night soil up to the farmers who will then buy it and compost it and return the nutrients that fed Shanghai to the farmlands that feeds it. In our modern world, we tend to think of sewage as toxic waste. And it's just terrible the amount of resources that are put into what is now considered conventional sewage treatment, where you pump an entire city to 1 or 2 sewage treatment plants, you detoxify it with enormous waste and production of greenhouse gases, and then basically you dump it either back into the groundwater or into the ocean or a nearby stream or lake. terrible waste. So wastewater gardens comes from the approach of constructed wetlands. And this technology was pioneered in our modern times in Europe and the United States in the 1960s. Now it's spreading worldwide. And this was the technology that we adopted. We worked with a fairly well-known NASA engineer to construct the sewage system in Biosphere 2. Treatment was high, remaining nutrients were returned to the agriculture. We had virtually a total recycle of water and reuse of nutrients. In addition, it was a lovely space. We produced a lot of animal fodder, beauty, habitat for beneficial insects. So this is Biosphere 2, and to the other side of the screen are the fairly small constructed wetlands that treated all of the waste of the 8 inhabitants and also the waste from our workshops, laboratories, and domestic animals. So I decided to go and get a PhD in this field, which totally turned me on. And if you've heard about constructed wetlands, you may know the term reed beds. And that is really a shame because engineers who don't appreciate that the opportunities in making a human designed wetland, a constructed wetland, just opt for 1 or 2 species. And because I am by background and by philosophy much more an ecologist, I decided to make these systems with as rich and varied a ecosystem as we could for bird habitat, beauty for the people who are enjoying it, useful products that could be brought in. And I did my PhD with H.T. Odom, who is considered the father of ecological engineering, which is let's use engineering principles and use natural processes as much as possible. And we started in Mexico where we had collected the coral reef, and we did about 30 systems along that Yucatan coast, very fragile coast with beautiful coral reefs that were an ecotourism attraction that were being highly damaged by uncontrolled and untreated sewage water. This is one of our systems 20 years after implementation. Now, wastewater gardens, since that origin in Biosphere 2 in the 1990s, we've now installed it in 14 countries around the world, in everything from mountain cold regions to hardcore deserts, tropical areas, dry areas, etc. You choose the plants that will accommodate to that climate, but the possibilities are virtually endless. And it's a very simple process. We start with a conventional septic tank or some way of separating solids. Then you make the constructed wetland itself with an impermeable barrier, some kind of a liner, so you can contain the sewage. And then the plants and the microbes start reusing it, creating a beautiful space. And then we continue. The treated water is used to create another green area. And the wonderful thing about this technology is it's actually much cheaper to build and to operate than conventional systems, cheaper to install, almost infinitely cheaper to maintain because it's very simple technology and you need a gardener rather than a technician. And they last far longer, especially in severe climates. Doesn't require imported sophisticated technology, uses local resources. And the wonderful thing about the technology is it can be scaled from quite small installations, a house, a cluster of houses, to large communities. So these following slides, show wastewater gardens at different scales. Love doing them for schools as well, because then it becomes an outdoor classroom. You can use the local wetland plants and demonstrate to people, one, their beauty and diversity, and also that they're extremely effective at treating wastewater. So we've also worked with Aboriginal communities. My institute has a project that I worked at for many decades in the North Kimberley. And that was interesting. And what I love about Eden in Iraq is, like those projects, we really wanted to get the local communities both involved and to celebrate their culture. So we had Aboriginal artists put their Dreamtime images on our system control boxes. And these are several of the projects that we did in Aboriginal communities. And internationally, just a little bit of range of some of the projects that we've done. Perhaps of greater interest to this group is we have worked in desert areas, like in Algeria, and there, with the inspiration of an Algerian artist, we made the system in the shape of a crescent moon, a very culturally important symbol. And for those of you who can read Arabic, we put a sign up to explain, the treatment system to the locals. And the greatest compliment that I get, because we keep the sewage underneath gravel and there's no odor, no mosquito breeding, is people come and they just think it's a beautiful garden, but it's actually a highly effective treatment. Uh, I won't bore you with the statistics, but people are, in our culture, tend to be technophiles. We love technology. And the truth is, though, that these natural systems, which don't need micromanagement or they just need the basic maintenance, perform equally well or better than city sewage treatment plants. And in fact, much better, because we get a lot of uptake and beneficial use of the nutrients. Then, when Meridel came to me with the challenge of doing a project in Iraq, and I heard, the terrible history of the draining of the marshes that Jassim just explained to you, I thought this is an opportunity for ecotechnics. We like to take on challenges. And we had lots of meetings investigating also the mystery of where the sewage was going. And the sad story is that virtually the whole country, and certainly heavily in the South, there is no sewage treatment. Uh, People who are not connected to the switch plants have open sewage, literally in through their houses and in their neighborhoods. Terrible situation, and all of that drains into the marshes, degrading them. And even where there's switch plants, these are not sewage treatment, they're just collection. And that very sad image that you're seeing is a pipe of raw sewage being ready to be discharged either directly into the marshes or the Euphrates, where the drinking water comes. And, so the solution that we've come up, and Davide, who will be speaking, will run you through some of the details later in this presentation. As I said, it's very scalable. So from a few houses, this project will cover 4 hectares, 10 acres, and treat 8,000 to 10,000 people's sewage, creating a beautiful garden with cultural elements celebrating the Marsh Arab culture. You want to read more about it? I've published a book called The Wastewater Gardener, Preserving the Planet One Flush at a Time. And I'll also direct you to the donations page of the Ecotechnics website, and turn friends on. We are looking, we now have local government support, but we really need some outside investment to complete the wastewater garden and this wonderful project. Thank you.
Okay. And I get to be next. Here I'm coming. And Ali's going to change me over, I think. Unless I can share. There I am. But that's not my desktop yet. Here. Here. And then I'm going to get rid of this. Get rid of this. Okay, everybody. I think I'm ready. I think I will get to my next slide. Uh-oh, I'm not Ali. There. I'm just putting this, hi, it's Meridel again. And I'm just putting this slide on as a kind of sequel to Jassim's talk, because I want you to know two things. One is that he has this great new book that he's co-authored with Steve Longerin from Canada, published by the American University in Cairo. It's beautiful. Jassim, besides being an engineer and hydrologist that you just met, he's a poet. He sings, he dances, he writes poetry, and it's his enduring spirit in the bleakest of times to have joy and commitment that never wanes, and we just keep going. So please, thank you, Jassim. Thank you, Mark, for your great presentations. And now here's my presentation, which is just starting you at the beginning of our project, when finally Mark and I get to Iraq in May of 2011. Our trip is arranged by Jassim Al-Asadi, who you should all know as the founder and CEO of Nature Iraq and Goldman Environmental Prize winner. And we meet Jassim in the US, and he convinced him, and then he arranges with Jassim to get us to Iraq. And here we are arriving at the airport, and Jassim has this book to show us, Return to the Marshes by Gavin Young, extraordinarily beautiful, written in photo book, where Jassim wanted us to see what the marshes looked like before they were drained. And right away, the synergy between two engineers and me, the artist, was evident before we even got into the car. And so during this time, I was visiting Associate Professor, School of Art, Design, and Media at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. And on your right is my colleague, Pierre Sadek, and a renowned industrial designer who loved our project and convinced me to apply for a university research grant, a very large grant, difficult to get. And we got it because I had mentioned that Sander Vanderloo on the left would be part of our team. Sander was he's a great archaeologist and dean of the School of Sustainability at Arizona State. The grant also allowed us to bring on Davide, and we needed Davide because he had done large-scale projects. So I call this slide Meetings with Men, my meetings with men. But first I want to say that we had to, when we made our first 3 trips, what we had to do was find places where there were enough people to donate enough sewage to get our garden to work. So we had many, many meetings, and we had to find a site. So we had tons of meetings first with town councils, elected officials, provincial representatives, the governor of our province. And by 2015 and 19, we were meeting with the Prime Minister's office and the ministries of the environment, of water resources, and culture. And just pointing out 2 things here on the upper middle, these are hydrologists from all over Iraq who, we traded with the Ministry of the Environment. In order to get visas, it was so difficult that we said we would lead a 5-day phytoremediation workshop if they would get us visas. And then again, in the middle, we're with 20 really angry tribal sheikhs because it's 2015 when Turkey, Iran, and ISIS closed all these dams and water just stopped. So we were invited to a meeting in Baghdad, emergency meeting to save the marshes, and these gentlemen wanted their water back. So one of the things I say about those pictures is there usually are no women because I'm taking the picture and there aren't any women at the meetings, but Samira Abed was always there. She was for many years director of the Center for Restoration of Iraq Marshes and Wetlands, and she kept our project afloat through many regimes because over this 13 years, the government keeps changing, we keep losing our ministers, and then we have to kind of reintroduce ourselves. And right now we have an enlightened minister who is moving forward, getting us money or partial money for substructure work. So now about the design. Back at our desk, so we had about 4. I don't want to go through how many times we've gone, but different ones of us went at different times. And back at our desks, in our respective countries, we met weekly over Zoom to design the garden. Now, this is during our grant period of 2013 to 17. So Pierre and I would work with our students to lay out the design and the pattern spatially. Then we'd negotiate each week with our engineers the exact proportions and dimensions based on the data of incoming sewage that we needed all this data that we had to keep getting from Iraq. So what you see though is this rug on the bottom. And this is a Mesopotamian embroidered wedding blanket. And I had found these, somehow they had come to our site online, and I kept asking Jassim, and finally in 2014, he we arrived and there are these rugs there, and he had found the one village that was still making this craft that was waning because of the American War had waned. And these are blankets that have embroidery. And so immediately we changed the design of our garden to honor these beautiful, exquisite tapestries. So here's showing you the designs, some of the drawings that we came up with in this four-year period that we finally showed. I'm going to show you the exhibition in 2017. These were made by a landscape architect, Bernard Du. And back to this perspective again. Let me get this back. So here's a closer look at our 4-hectare site, and just look on the right side. That on the right side, this is what we've just accomplished in building on the top. 3 acres of just constructed wetland. And on the bottom, underneath it, you can see what it looks like. There are reeds that grow. They take up very quickly the waste and prevent smell. And then just looking at this perspective on top, this is the design. You can see that, and it's over, now we've got almost 7 acres now of designed garden. And what you're seeing are 2 rivulets, 2 blue rivulets that join and then go down the center of the garden. There are 2 fountains at the moment. There may be more, and there are lots of little marks that should point out where the shade structures will be. So if you look at the bottom, you can see the reed shade structures. You need shade. It's the desert. It's hot, and we're going to make them very, very beautiful. But just one more point about 2 more points. One is that you see the wastewater garden cells where the flora will be. And Mark's gone into this a little, Davide will, how that works, but there's a plastic liner gravel, and then we just put plants in, and the waste makes them grow. Now, on your right, what you see in that triangle, for me, this is my most important area. If we get to this, it's going to be, there are 3 medicinal herb gardens from the 3 cultures that we are honoring: the Mesopotamian, the Sumerian, the biblical, and the Quranic. And we'll have medicinal herbs from each, which will be fed by fresh water. And then in between, in the middle, there will be some kind of major artwork by an Iraqi artist of a fountain, a light work, something. So here, just to sort of enliven those drawings, this is what woven reed architecture looks like. It's an exquisite, exquisite craft. It's 5,000 years old. At least it goes back on cylinder seals from the Asmolean Museum at Oxford. You'll see these exact same, let's see if you can see my cursor. I don't know if you can, but these exact same structures on a cylinder seal from 5,000 years ago. Now, during the time of ISIS, 2016, I couldn't go to Iraq. My university forbade me to go. So instead I went to Jordan and I visited the Royal Botanic Garden to study the ancient endangered plants, 23,000 endangered ancient plants that they are preserving and that have been mentioned in the Quran. So if they've been mentioned in the Quran, possibly they have a relationship to what was in the garden, but probably doesn't matter. We ourselves at various nurseries have been researching plants that will be able to survive in the oncoming climate. Well, maybe not as old as the flora in the Garden of Eden, these plants do date to the time of Muhammad, and we will use them. Pierre and I also, I kind of wanted to give you a sense of all the kind of networks that we kind of touched in order to get the information we needed to proceed with the garden. And here, 2014, Pierre and I raised the money to have a conference in Singapore and to bring our whole team together so that we could be together to design, but also we gave lectures, all sorts of field trips, involved all sorts of people in this. And here in this slide on the right, you see our board member, Julia Watson, who from Low Tech Design, she's a landscape architect. It's written 2 books that we've been prominently featured in. So at the end of our grant, the university gave us more money to have an exhibition at the National Design Center right in the center of Singapore. And you can see in the top left, I made these portraits of marsh people, large, huge portraits all around the building. And then inside, in the main space, we had 3 kiosks, kind of each one forming an octagon with 4 walls. And on these walls were 128 images and text of everything you wanted to know about the history and ecology of the marshes in Mesopotamia, about our design process, and about our sources of inspiration. And you can see on the top right one, my artwork is kind of circling the exhibition. So here, what you see on the bottom right, Jassim, I hope he'll remember this. He made these. He had these made in Chibayish, woven reed fans, flags, fans with our names on them. And above that, you see the video that I showed you. You see the way it was installed as an installation in there, those rugs. And so just a little detail here, which I think would help you a little bit, that here's the installation. There are these, this is triptych. They are jacquard tapestries. They're woven tapestries. There's no ink. They're just threads crossing. Now, rugs are so prominent everywhere in Iraq. It's Shia. They're praying 5 times a day. There are rugs everywhere. So in the artwork, I've used rugs, tapestries, linen. And in this particular image, I think this is a really pertinent image because the images are mostly from 2011. And what you're seeing is after that drought in 2009, now the marshes have become 20% regreened on the left and look like Eden. And on the right, they're burned, still burned. And I think that we need to say something about what happens to our system in drought. Our system is underground. And as long as there are people there, as long as there's sewage, that our system just goes on and cleans the waste. Here are the rooms, the room with the Mesopotamian embroidered rugs. And people wanted to buy these rugs. That woman bought 3 of them there. And so I realized I should apply to the International Folk Art Market in Santa Fe, where I live. Tens of thousands of people come to this every summer. They'd never had Iraqis. They accepted us. They gave us grants to be able to come. And here's our booth with all of the wedding blankets and rugs and my pictures of the women. And so we made a lot of money, and we took a lot of money back to Iraq to the women. And we also had enough to finally buy a few historic rugs like this one on the right, a huge rug with the finest embroidery. And so I've been encouraged to say that we still have some left. And it's the sale of these rugs is how we fund our operating expenses. So if any of you are interested, my email's in the chat. So just getting to the last thing, this is Inanna. So Inanna was and is the goddess of fertility, flood, war, and love. She's a very dynamic, powerful Mesopotamian goddess and still revered today. And so a year ago, I finally received funding to make the first artwork for the garden. You've seen now 13 years of everything we've been doing. And finally, we could make some art. And I wrote this grant. Anonymous was a woman, New York Foundation for the Arts, got funding and included Nawar Ihsan in my proposal. Nawar is a renowned museum professional. She's been museum director. She's presently a conservator at the Iraq Museum, but she was in London for 2 months this spring, where she was working with the British Museum to learn all sorts of techniques to draw people to the Iraq Museum. So she's also an artist, and she's also a lover of Inanna. So we got together with this man, Shel Niemark, in northern New Mexico. He has a ceramic studio. And the 3 of us on Zoom, all winter, spring, worked on designs. And what we wanted to do was use images from antiquity. And here you can see in this little portion from the Warka vase, how we were finding different things that had already been published, already were known. And I think most of you know that it's very difficult in Iraq to have images of contemporary women. So we decided that images of women of Inanna from antiquity and historic photos of marsh women would be appropriate to use for these tile panels. And where they're going is on the entrance to the garden. And we'll have probably a fancier main entrance and then 2 other arched entrances. So we still have 5 more panels to make. And the next one will be one of the marsh girl on your left in her boat, the same size as Inanna. And so you'll have this feminine presence welcoming you. So it's important to tell you that collaboration is at the heart of this whole thing. The 4 of us are so close. We have I think 3 or 4 other team members and past team members and people that are still around. But so it's been at the root of 13 years of our work, and so many people have given freely and selflessly to make this happen, and we still have a ways to go. And so I need to mention Abdullah Hamdani, so important, my first teacher of Sumerian culture and mythology. He was in New York getting his PhD when we first met, 2013, and then he went on to be Minister of Culture, Tourism, and Antiquity. He was a great archaeologist, but sadly passed away in 2022 at 50. He first introduced me to Inanna right at the first thing he told me with stories of his childhood, where he said that they were right in the marshes, they were farmers, but his grandmother would take red powdered pigment and paint the 8-pointed star of Venus, the morning star, on his forehead and on all of the sheep's foreheads. And then she'd point to Venus in the sky and say, you better watch out or she's going to get you. In the 1970s, weather was constant, yearly, seasonal, and every spring was really the new year when the floods would come and people would get prepared so they wouldn't be washed out, so the seeds could go downstream and plant other places. And so this is how I started to learn about Sumerian culture. Now, we hope in a few years you will be able to visit the Eden Iraq Wastewater Garden in Mesopotamian Marshes at a peaceful time. Inanna and a marsh woman will greet you at the entrance as ceramic relief tiles. These 2 female presences express our hope for the garden to be a place of beauty and regeneration, for contemplation, healing, family gatherings, and most importantly, health. We hope some of you will know potential funders. You can make donations through our fiscal sponsor, Institute of Ecotechnics. We hope some of you might want a rug or 2, but more importantly, we're so happy that you support the study of Iraq. That's the most important thing. So thank you for being here. And now I'm going to turn it over to Davide. If I can. Do I stop the share? How do I do this? Oop. Okay. There's Davide. There's Mark. So we have to get here.
Good evening to everybody, and good morning to the other part of the community that is listening us. Thank you very much for your presence here. I'm showing you the wastewater garden that will be realized here in South Iraq, and you can see the most beautiful part with the date palm, the 2 rivers coming on one, the bridge, etc., and on the back. The part that now we have realized 2 years ago and is still functioning now. For me, this project is a very challenging project because we have to realize a garden, a beautiful garden, but under the ground you can see there are a design, there is an engineering part that consists in pumping system, pipe, slope, etc. Everything related to construct the wetland or wastewater garden is very simple and cheap in functioning and realization because we only need the gravel, a sealing system, and now we will bring the air solar pump. The system will be fed from a septic tank near the village. We will realize another one before the garden, then there will be the beautiful garden inside. And then we will produce treated water that will be reused in irrigation, gardening, and also a fruit land, a new fruit land. Up to now, we realized that we started the construction last year in springtime, in March. We realized the first basin of the system that consists of a surface flow wetland. Here you can see the beginning of the system where we received the sludge from the septic tank in the city of Chibaish. We have the first basin here, and then we send the wastewater into a big area that is more or less 1 acres now. After that, there is a channel that will go now because we realized another basin here that will remove the sludge, we will remove the nitrogen content and also the suspended solid. The second step from now is to realize the beautiful garden with everything you see in the previous slides. Okay. What we are doing now is a good project because we are removing the pollution from the wetland of South Iraq. You see, there is a lot of problem related to drought condition, no water in the rivers of Iraq, etc. But we are doing a beautiful project because we have treated the water that now goes into the marshland, where there is people that fish, the people breeding buffalo. Many guys are swimming inside the channel of the marshland, etc. This is a picture from the satellite taken last summer in 2023. You can see the square here is our garden, our first basin garden, and the water that we send into the environment is a treated water, and we keep alive the local environments in the marshland because everything related to the marshland the last summer, 2 years ago, was drought because Iraqis suffer a very, very severe drought condition in summertime usually, and also this year. This is what we are doing. We get wastewater from a pipe that comes from the city of Chibaish that go inside the first basin. This is our first pre-treatment. We have another 2 basins like this one, and then we will send the treated water into the garden for the irrigation and also for the secondary treatment. This first part was funded by the local government and ministry, realized from them with private funding, or the public funding, but we are searching, obviously, a second part of the funding because we need more or less $3 million to finish the project there. This is what we are doing last summer. These pictures were taken by me in July 2024. This is the inlet. You can see that everything is black, rich in suspended solid. Plants there are growing very well. You can see tall phragmites growing. And this is the outlet. You can see the difference just in color, but I can show you also the water quality analysis, but just the color show you that we are doing something for the environment. We are doing everything to remove pollution, nutrients, bacteria activities, etc. Because what we are sending now into the environment is a pale brown water. That means that it is very, very treated and very well to go outside. Another work we did last summer was a new plantation into the garden because part of the garden was fully planted. You can see in the back of this picture. And we plant, I think, more or less 300 species now, plant now. We collect the plants from the original breed system into the marshland with a good work from these guys and the fishermen there. They help us to plant a lot of new plants into the first and second basins. Another great deal of the last summer was to meet the present Ministry of Water Resources that they say to us, yes, you can go on with the second stage of the project. We will realize it with the funding campaign. Me and Jassim met the ministry in the ministry office there, and then we go with Nawar and also Dr. Aider in city center of Baghdad to celebrate this good point of the project. I want to finish my quick presentation just to remind that from a cultural, very beautiful cultural aspect, we can realize a design. This design means engineering is engineering because we have pipe, solar pumps, a few cubic meter of gravel, slope, etc. We can realize a beautiful thing that will remove the pollution from the beautiful area of the marshland there. Thank you very much.